Hey guys, welcome back to another Spy Family Sunday. We're finally here. This is the final chapter of this year. I'm very excited to talk about this chapter. It's definitely more of a transitional chapter, but I just wanted to say I love and appreciate all the support for these reviews. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive into chapter 92 of Spy Family. So the chapter starts off with Damien, Anya, and Becky, and they're looking at a sign in the hall, and it says term finals. So we're back to studying, and Becky's like, Anya, this is important. If we don't do well on these exams, we're going to end up in different classes for the second term. So Anya is determined to not get any Tanitra's bolts. She doesn't want to risk not being in the same class as Damien. And so she's been studying, and it's funny because Lloyd is in the same predicament. He's at home and he's looking at some of Anya's test scores, and he's like, what are we going to do? Term finals are coming up. We might be doomed. Things are not looking good. And he's sort of reflecting on the time when he considered altering Anya's score, and he ran into Daybreak. Apparently since then the security has just gone all the way up, and so he starts thinking like, man, who was that guy? Was he a master spy? Was he trying to ruin my plans for Operation Strix? He ultimately decides to drop that theory, but he's looking at one of Anya's tests, and it's for classical languages, and she has a 62, which is almost passing. It's decent. We've gotten away from the single digits. Lloyd decides to sort of hone in on that. He's like, well, maybe we can just put all our focus on classical language. Maybe we can get a stellar star that way. Anya wakes up the next day and she's sort of like, oh, it's cold in here. She's sneezing, and he's like, oh, please don't tell me you got sick right before finals. Anya's a child, so she's like, hey, look how long my snot is. I'm gonna go show my mother, and so Twilight's thinking to himself, yeah, maybe I just need to live in reality. And the reality is that this girl is not gonna get a Stella. And so they're studying, and of course, Anya has a hard time studying because Lloyd is just very formulaic. He's like, follow the formula, you'll figure out the answer. And for some children that works, but for Anya, it doesn't really seem to be clicking. And they get a knock at the door, and it's the grandparents. Oh, they are so adorable. Seriously, when they showed up, I squeed. I was like, oh my god, it's Sigmund and Barb. They came over and they're like, hey, we just made some cookies. Do you guys want to join us? Of course, Anya's like, cookies, and Lloyd's like, hey, no, you need to study. And Barbara's like, oh my, did I interrupt a study session? They don't want to be rude, and so Lloyd ultimately decides to accept their request to come over for tea and cookies. They go over to their apartment, and it's just full of books because Sigmund used to be a professor. They're having small talk, and Barbara's asking how do you like your husband? How long have you guys been married? Just tit for tat small talk. Lloyd is a little suspicious, which comes with the nature of his job. I mean, he's suspicious about everything. And so Barbara and Sigmund are asking Yor and Lloyd how long they've lived in Berlin. Have they always lived here? I've lived here my whole life. And the question is then flipped back to Barbara and Sigmund, and she's like, well, after the war, we relocated to a place called Covenia, but then they came back here to be closer to their son and his family. And so they definitely lived through the war, so I am looking forward to maybe seeing a flashback with that. That would be cool. And so, Lloyd is asking oh, you have a lot of books in here. You were a professor. Sigmund says that he helped rehabilitate some of the wounded soldiers, and Lloyd's thinking to himself, oh, that's, not far from what I'm doing. And so everybody's making small talk, and Lloyd makes an observation that Sigmund has a lot of books on classical language. Anya's saying that that's what she's studying right now, and that she really wants to get a Stella star and, pass this final exam. And so upon hearing this, Sigmund offers to help Anya study, but the way that he approaches it is with a Spy Wars comic, because he has the first volume, and it's super rare. It's the limited edition. And so Anya's like, wow, this is cool, you're cool. And so Sigmund tries to instill this sense of joy in studying with Anya, and so he uses Spy Wars to do that. So he tells her, with classical language, we have to change our vocabulary to fit the situation. Sort of like how Bondman has to disguise himself in order to infiltrate certain missions. And so for Anya, that really clicks. And so they play all kinds of word puzzles, and Anya really takes a liking to it, you know, and Sigmund always says, Eureka, you did it. And it's so cute because Anya tries emulating that, and she starts talking about like eucalyptus leaves because Sigmund is like, did you know that koala bears eat eucalyptus leaves and they're poisonous, which is why they sleep all the time. And so he tries to make the lessons both educational, and he tries to make it something that Anya can relate to. He really takes a liking to her. He's like, you know, children like you are our nation's treasures. And it's the first time you sort of see his eyes. At first, I wouldn't say it creeped me out, but it was just kind of like, oh man, like I know he's old, but his eyes look really tired. His eyes tell me that yes, he is a gentleman, but his eyes also tell me that he has been through some stuff. So I'm very curious to get the backstory on this couple. But anyways, study session was a success, and of course he offers to help Anya study, you know, every day if she wants to, you know, as long as there's cookies there, Anya says. And you know, Lloyd's kind of a little apprehensive about it because he's like, this guy is a teacher, he's offering to help Anya study, you know, like what's going on with this old couple? Like this seems a little convenient. But you know, for now he sort of is cautious about it. He agrees to let it happen. And so there's like this really cute montage of like, you know, Anya studying with him. By the end of the study sessions, she marks her face with like permanent ink so it looks like she has a beard. And she comes back to the apartment and she's like, Dad, I have mastered classical language. And he's like, cool, why do you look like that? And so she's like, I just put it on my face for dramatic effect. And so the day of the test comes and Damien's looking at her like, there is no way I'm gonna lose to this moron. And Master Henderson is asking Anya, he's like, so what's going on with your face? Is this some kind of joke? And she's like, well, I wrote on my face with permanent ink and it won't come off. They all start taking the test. Anya looks super pumped, and of course it ends on a cliffhanger. So we don't know if she has passed her exams, but based on the practice exams, I mean, she was getting pretty good grade. She got like a 78 on the practice exam. So, you know, there's hope that, you know, she did really well on this. So we do leave on that cliffhanger. Really good chapter, really heartwarming. I like the fact that we're getting a lot of screen time for this elderly couple. Like I'm glad that they're gonna be permanent characters. I can't wait to see their backstory again. I think there's a lot there that will give us insight to the war. As far as the next chapter, I mean, hopefully Anya passed. I'm pretty confident in saying that she passed her exams. Not her and Becky and Damien are gonna be in the same class again, or maybe she won't be in the same class with Damien. I mean, how will that affect Operation Strix? Will Twilight have to go in and intervene and make sure that they're in the same class? Or can they be successful separated? It's pretty much already implied that her and Damien are friends. So yeah, it was a good chapter. Lots of comedy. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I laughed a lot reading this chapter. It was very heartwarming. Yeah, and I can't wait for the next chapter. So again, if you guys are liking the content here, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, remember to be awesome and stay true.